to order, and I need a roll call.
Washburn,
Here.
Hewitt,
Here.
Anastasio,
Here.
Doxey,
Here.
Bhatia,
Here.
DeGroot.
He's here. Trustee Clausen is excused, and so we can move on to item C, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's funny how sometimes I stumble. I want to start going into.
Okay. Okay, so from here we move on to public comment. Members of the public are welcome to provide comments on any matter. Please listen for the president to recognize you. State your name and address for the public record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. I don't have anybody signed up for public comment, do we?
Can I just make a notice that the public comment form also has a public hearing, so later in the evening we'll be having public hearings, so if you wish to speak on that, if you want to fill out that form and give it to me as well.
Right, so we've got 2 different things going on. This is public comment on any matter, and then we have a number of public hearings for specific business items, zoning changes and such things. But nobody wanting to speak publicly for the good of the cause? Okay. In that case, we'll close public comment. We'll move on to the consent agenda. And I'm understanding that somebody needs to get recused from something on it.
I do, sir.
Huh?
I do.
Okay.
If you want to.
Mr. President, I make a motion to adopt the items in the consent agenda. Second.
So I hear a motion and a second on the consent agenda. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Except, Mr. President, I'd like to recuse myself from item 7.
Okay, will clerk note that? Opposed? So that motion carries. So let's move on to new business. We have a number of public hearing things. We've got public hearing for item number 1, and that's for a proposed amendment to the land use element of Racine County 2035 multi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan related to 423 South Fancher Road, and that's CPA-22-4. So the following rules apply to the public hearing, and each of the following public hearings scheduled tonight. We've got a number of them. So if you wish to speak on any of these public hearing items that are agended, please fill out a public hearing form, which you'll find on the table near the entrance, as clerk just mentioned as well. Once recognized, speakers shall come to the podium and identify themselves with their name and address. Please speak clearly into the microphone. Speakers must address all discussions towards the board. I will not allow interchange between the members of the audience and the speaker. Please do not interfere with nor interject comments as another person has the floor. Please keep all comments on the particular item before the board and no longer than 5 minutes. And finally, please turn off or mute your electronic devices so we don't have that interference. So from here on this first item, Robin Palm.
Thank you. So this is a the applicant applied to amend the village as part of the land use element of the multi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan for Racine County 2035, which I'll heretofore refer to as the comp plan, for approximately 2.6 acres from residential areas, including churches multifamily, to mixed-use commercial/residential. The applicant wishes to convert the existing single-family home into a wedding and event venue. Staff recommended and Plan Commission agreed that we would also add additional parcels to the south. We reviewed this at Plan Commission and it was sent to this public hearing back in December. We feel that, so we have a long report on this. I'm not going to go through the entire report. If anybody's interested, please, check it online or contact me. The village staff believes that this amendment is partially compatible with the surrounding land uses. The property is surrounded on 3 sides by land approved for moderate density multifamily development, which would match the increased intensity of an event business. The property also lies next to South Fancher Road, a county trunk highway, and designated principal arterial street. Therefore, the village staff expect increased intense uses to take advantage of the connectivity as the village grows and changes. The adjacent properties west of South Fancher Road are all rurally, that's a tough one, platted low-density residential development and not typically next to event businesses. The village staff believe that the existing village landscaping and screening ordinances would mitigate parking and noise considerations from adjacent properties. Vanguard Development, the company who owns the surrounding moderate density zoned areas, previously said that they may also consider small to light commercial service uses on some of the lands along South Fancher Road. Such as uses would include consumer maintenance and repair service, such as like tailors, a laundry, picture framing shops, personal service, barber, hair and nail salons, and studio instructional service. Village staff also recommend that the Plan Commission consider, that's already been covered. So the intensities would be B2 or lower or mixed use or lower, so that would pretty much preclude any drive-through uses or any intensive uses such as gas stations or anything like that. So this is just the public hearing. As far as, people will speak out on whether or not they are for or against it. This item will be up at Plan Commission in March, and will be at the village board for consideration after that. That's it.
Okay, so regarding 425 South Fancher Road, the comprehensive plan changes that are being proposed, this is the time for the public to speak on that. I have nobody signed up for this. Is there anybody wanting to speak on the Fancher Road business? Not hearing from anybody, we'll close public hearing on that. And I'll move to the trustee Doxey.
Actually, not on this one.
No?
There's no ordinance on this one.
We don't have an ordinance to go with this? Okay, very
No.
well. So let's jump over to public hearing number 2. And this is item F, parent 1, parent B. So we're opening up the public hearing regarding item F, parent 1, parent B, a zoning map amendment for the property on Giddings Road, amendment 23-1. Back to Mr. Palm.
Thank you. This is ordinance 323, the zoning map for Giddings Road. The owner of this particular parcel is the Village of Mount Pleasant. The applicant is Samuel Schultz, some guy. Applied to amend the zoning map from AG1, limited agriculture, to P1, which is neighborhood scale. This map amendment would properly zone a parcel which contains an easement for an overhead electrical wires and a public pathway. Basically, as a part of the development off of Spring, the duplexes, about 22 duplexes from Jeff Badke, which was approved last year. A part of that was a dedication of the eastern side of his property for a bicycle pathway, which sort of corresponds to the start of the Pike River pathway on the opposite side of Spring Street. That's a dedication, and this is just a zoning map amendment in order to accommodate that designation. And they've also agreed that they will be building that particular portion of the path. So, and that is what that particular zoning amendment is.
That Samuel Schultz applicant guy, can you vouch for his character?
I mean, we were at each other's wedding, so yeah, I think I can.
All right. So regarding the Giddings Road business in front of the public, this would be the time for me to invite public comment on that. Again, I have nobody signed up for that. Anybody wishing to speak on Giddings Road? Not hearing from anybody, we'll close public comment on that.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 3-2023, a zoning map amendment for Giddings Road, ZMA 23-1.
Second the motion, Mr. President.
So I hear a motion and a second. Any discussion among the board?
I don't have any discussion, but a comment, because I live north of the Gidding Road, and I think, to build a bike pathway, all the way which goes to Spring Street and which will connect to the old Spring Street for the Pike River, I think is a great idea, and I think it's about time we keep on adding bike paths to our village road for the people. So I'm very pleased about that.
Yeah, we do have the upcoming bike and ped plan scheduled to take place this year, and this will be how to cross Spring Street will probably be a discussion point in that plan.
Exactly.
So there be no other comment. I'll call the vote on that. Roll call, please.
Washburn,
Aye.
Hewitt,
Aye.
Anastasio,
Aye.
Doxey,
Aye.
Patu,
Aye.
DeGroot.
Aye. Motion carries. So let's move on to the next public hearing item, which is item F, parent 1, parent C, which is zoning map amendment for the property on Enterprise Drive, and that's amendment 23-2. Back to Mr. Palm.
Okay, so this zoning map amendment is for 3 parcels on Enterprise Drive. That's the dead-end drive off of Corporate Drive right here, behind the dealership and next to the sort of corporate condos that Newport's a part of. Jason Lawrence from Joseph Scott Homes applied to amend the zoning map from B3, general business, to RL2, low-density residential. The applicant wishes to plat approximately 9 residential lots on the parcels totaling 2.285 acres. The applicant will determine the exact dimensions of those residential lots on a future certified survey map. This application follows the comp plan's mixed residential / business designation. The village is currently drafting a local area plan for local planning area 5. I gave an update on that at Planning Commission last week. This application meets the RL2 lot standards, provided a CSM is used to divide the lots. The lands are within tax incremental District 2, but the applicant did not request any tax incremental financing assistance, and that expenditure window is closed. Staff believes that this will very, very drastically increase the value of those empty lots to well above the village's goal of $1 million assessable value per acre. And the village staff and Plan Commission recommend approval on one condition, and that is that the applicants submit a certified survey map, subdivision plat, or condo plat showing legal property divisions under RL2 within 1 year of approval, else the zoning will revert. That's it.
Okay, so at this point in time, I open public comment on this item, the Enterprise Drive business. Again, I have nobody signed up to publicly comment on that.
I will add, I spoke with an adjacent property owner today that was within the 300 feet zone of notifications, and she indicated support for this project and hope that it would bring additional economic development to her parcel.
Excellent. Is there anybody in chambers wishing to speak on this item that hasn't signed up yet? No? Okay, in that case, we'll close public hearing on that item, Enterprise Drive. Trustee Doxey?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve Ordinance 4-2023, a zoning map amendment for Enterprise Drive, ZMA 23-2.
Second.
So I hear a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this, board members?
Mr. President, I just have a comment. Number one, Robin, you and I have talked about the area around the park numerous times. So I'm glad to see that Joseph Scott is helping you fulfill your dream of seeing residential be surrounding our park, our beautiful new campus park, because that is truly, a wonderful use for it. And Jason Lawrence, I applaud you for recognizing the need for the price point that you're trying to bring. I was not at the Plan Commission, but I did listen to the presentation. And I think that it's very creative of you to find this location, as well as be able to develop it and create that 300,000 price point. Very desirable, still affordable today. And so in that regard, you do have my support. So thank you. That's all, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I'd like to add a comment to also, to add to trustee Washburn's comment. Jason, kudos to you and to your company, Joseph Scott's Home, because like, I know your quality, and what we heard from Robin, you are going to bring the value of the properties over there in a very nice way, kind of quality homes on the back of the park, and I'm very pleased that you and your company are taking initiative, to continue the development in our village. Thank you.
Good. So regarding the motion for Enterprise Drive, roll call, please.
Washburn,
Aye.
Hewitt,
Aye.
Anastasio. Aye. Doxey,
Aye.
Bhatia,
Aye.
DeGroot.
Aye, motion carries. Public hearing number 4. We now have a public hearing regarding item F, parent 1, parent D, a zoning map amendment for 616 South Fancher Road. That's amendment 23-3. Mr. Palm.
Yes, so this is ordinance 5-2023, zoning ZMA 23-3. From the applicant is Susan Winnen, or Winnen, is it Winnen? Okay. Applied to amend the zoning map from RL1 to RE. The map amendment would allow 2.2 animal units for the property per chapter 90-340.20A. This sort of coincides with, I mentioned in the earlier thing that on the west side of Fancher Road is more rural uses. The applicant is currently in a area plot that can be either RE, which is a state residential, which carries some sort of farm benefits, or could be RL1. So they wish to amend the zoning map from RL1 to RE to have the 2.2 animal units for the property. The village staff approves this, and Plan Commission also recommended it as well. Several of the properties along Fancher have basically, Fancher and Spring to the west have requested the same sort of conversion to allow for this use.
Good. Again, opening public comment for ordinance 5-2023. I have nobody signed up for this. Anybody in chambers wishing to speak on this matter of Fancher Road that's in front of the board? Anybody? Not hearing from anybody, we'll close public hearing on that item. And we'll move on.
All right, Mr. President?
Oh, do we have a motion on this one?
Yep, I make a motion to approve ordinance 5-2023, a zoning map amendment for 616 South Fancher Road, ZMA 23-3.
Second.
So I hear a motion and a second. Discussion among the board?
I just wanted to add, Mr. President, the property owner is here, and she's very shy and didn't want to get up and speak in front of all of us, but I hope it helps her raise her children and enjoy country life and join 4-H through Racine County and get involved, so good luck.
We really should have brought her up here and grilled her just a little bit.
She's already turning redder than her hair, so let's not embarrass her anymore.
Okay.
You called her out.
I did, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, with there being no other comment, I'll call the vote on that. Roll call, please.
Washburn,
Aye.
Hewitt,
Aye.
Anastasio. Aye. Doxey,
Aye.
Bhatia,
Aye.
DeGroot.
He says aye. So that motion carries. So let's move on to the next public item, number 5. And that's regarding item F, Parent 1, Parent B, which is a zoning map amendment for a property located on Megan's Way, Amendment 23-4. Back to Mr. Palm.
Okay, so this has been submitted, Mark Leif submitted on behalf of Vanguard Development. The applicant applied to amend the zoning map from RM2 and RL1 to RH1, including only a portion of one of the parcels listed for areas facing Megan's Way. The applicant wishes to amend the zoning map so they may construct 2-story 26-unit buildings. The current RM2 district allows a maximum of 20 units per building. And just to clarify, before the zoning code rewrite of 2020, the RM2 district did allow for 26-unit buildings, and we changed that, just sort of an arbitrary number, moved it down to 20. The current units counts in that in the current Tivoli Green average around between 20 and 23. So this is, they also previously submitted a site plan for the continuation of Megan's Way and split off to Anderson Boulevard, but because of site plan costs and rising costs, they're actually going to first focus on the basically existing road and infrastructure that they already have and develop that first. So that is going to be a later part and later phase of the infrastructure plan. Also, when considering the amount of development that can occur in this particular area, there is an overall hard limit on how much can occur because of the current limits on sewer infrastructure. So that would have to be worked out before obviously a theoretical max could be passed. So RH1 is residential high density 1, and they have indicated their desire to basically continue the form and function of the existing development, as well as adding, at staff's very much insistent, adding a new townhouse product. Staff has been very insistent about varying up the types of housing that are offered, and the developer has agreed to do that. So that is, and currently this application is just the rezone, does not include the site plan review. That will become at a later date, hopefully next month.
Thank you. So at this point, I'll open up for public comment. As last time, I don't have anybody signed up for that. If you'd like to bring your paperwork forward so that I could recognize you. Me, please. You could give it to her, then she'll walk it up over by me. So let's just, cut out the middleman. So this is Dave Brinkman?
Yes, sir.
Do introduce yourself and your address. And
I'm David Brinkman. I live at 8934 Golden Drive, which is just over here. This is the third or fourth time I've been here with the public village board about this development across the street. The first units went over there. We consider the people who live in this area way too many units for what the parking spots were involved and traffic on the roads and everything else. Now they're going for the second portion of this development, which is off Highway H, the roads to come through and more apartments to be from basically here from Campus Drive all the way down to what the new ones that are down there, fill in that whole area. This company has been to the village board several times getting zoning changes. And they're picking at it a little bit at a time to get these changes. When they were here 3-4 months ago to get this zoning approved to put in this next phase of their project, why didn't they bring the 26 units to the village board, zoning board at that time? Because they didn't need to. They're gonna take a little bite at a time so you don't see the changes. As it is, we're down here, if this place was full with all the apartments filled with what they consider family dwellings, most people nowadays have 2 cars per family, and with their studio apartments, they would not have enough parking spots on their site to accommodate all the cars. Not even close. They'd be about 100 parking spots short. So I'd be parking on the road. What are they gonna do over here on this one if they go from 20 to 26 units of building? Do they have enough parking off-street for them people that they wanna put in these units? That's a good question. We already know they don't have enough there if they fill up. They're gonna be parking on the roads. What they're gonna be doing over there? This company has consistently come and taken a little bite off the village every time they come here for, oh, we just want a little change from 20 units to 26. Oh, we just want to change from single-family residential to 13 units in the first phase. We'll worry about the rest of it later, whether it's single-family or if it's multifamily, whether it's 1 story, 2 story, or 3 stories, which they got approved for this site down here. I'm just sick of them coming to the village and taking little bites at a time. I live in this area. I live right across the street from it. I see it happening. Whether you live close by or away, I do not know. But they're taking little bites, a little at a time, to get what they want. And I don't think it's fair that the people who live in the area, whether it's over here on Highway H to the north off Old Spring Street, if we have to put up with it, of continuing them taking little bites at the apple to get what they want. I understand development's fine. Last time I was here when they wanted that, I said, well, why don't they move out to International Drive and Highway 11? Because they said that Foxconn's gonna bring in so many people, they need all this housing for people. Why didn't they move it over to International Drive, Highway 11? It was a new development, there's no residential around it at all. But no, they had to put it in where single-family residential is. You told us it won't hurt our value of our houses. It has. There's people in the area that moved out before that thing was built so they could get what it getting's good. There's other people who've sold since and have not got what the value of the house was back before that was put in. It's time that the village board stops catering to this Vanguard development and hold the line at something. That's all I got to say. It's enough.
Appreciate your thoughts. Did the developer want to respond? Oh. Jared Lloyd? Gerald. Name and address, sir?
I live at 230 Hammis Drive, which is 1 block over from 90th, if nobody knows. I received this letter in the mail, and I'm looking at it, and nowhere can I find any layouts, what they actually want to do here. How many units are they going to put in off of Megan's Drive? We don't have the information. And from the original, this was supposed to be a tiered development over here. It was supposed to be single-family homes, duplexes, and condominiums. Now we're getting all rental units. And then they want to change it to a high-density rate. Yes, maybe the buildings are the same size. They have 26 units in them. It's just a lot of congestion. I don't think the roads here can handle it. When this is all done, to me, I kind of wish that the board would do a little compromise with the existing neighborhoods and not keep giving in to Vanguard. I've lived in Mount Pleasant most of my life, and I only feel it's fair that you look at the individuals because I hate to think that your attitude is, if you don't like it, move. Thank you.
I appreciate your thoughts. Robin, I know that you probably want to respond to that, but help me out here. There isn't a site plan that's produced until the zoning is in place, isn't that right?
Yeah, in order to submit a site plan, the zoning has to conform to the site plan that they're submitting. And I think to address the first one, this is instead of the plan that they were submitted several months ago, not and sort of coupled with. This is basically, developing just along Megan's Way that already exists. As far as traffic concerns, the latest traffic counts along 90th Street have it at 3,400 cars a day, which is and level of service A, and is vastly sort of underutilized. There's often complaints of speeding along it because there's not a whole lot of traffic along the road. And as far as the particular like the zoning questions and whatnot, so that this is basically zoning what was always going to be a part of the development south of Megan's Way, putting that in. It's not, slowly inching or anything like that over time. As a matter of fact, another thing about this is that this particular development has been critical to the success of our tax increment District 2, which has funded our campus park considerably, and as well has funded the additional sidewalks paid for by the tax increment district around on 90th Street and within Heartland Village and stuff like that. So we consider the development a resounding success.
Did the developer wish to speak? Because this is a public hearing, public's got questions, maybe you've got some answers.
Good evening, Mark Lake, Wongard Partners, 1200 North Mayfair Road, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A couple things. Main reason we're here is because the existing zoning of the property, put it this way, we couldn't build what we have there now. And we want to preserve our ability to work on our second phase. And our second phase, when we really looked at it back 4 years ago in the beginning of things, was going to be on either side of Megan's Way. That was what we called phase 2. A couple months ago, or several months ago, when we came through, we were hoping that at the time that the county was going to come through with their plans, and they were going to widen Fancher Road to Highway H and allow for extension of Campus Drive and other things. That has since fallen through, and there's kind of really was no reason for us to continue going that way when we were going to get cooperation from the county for years to come. So we had to retrench a little bit and go back to our original plan, which was working on either side of Megan's Way, and that's what our plan is today. A different building than what we have there right now. When you talk about our parking plan, when we came in, was 1.3 units, or 1.3 parking spaces per unit. And it hasn't exceeded that, and we're not at 2. We're not at what, actually we're at 1 right now. We have several garages that are not even being used. We have lots of available parking spaces. And we are allowed to use the street in our calculation, but we don't. So there's plenty of room for us to park, and we always come through and we always plan for making sure that we have enough available parking. We go through every one of our properties around southeastern Wisconsin. We gauge how many parking spaces are needed, and when we do come in for our plan, we find out who are our tenants, what are their needs, and we plan for that. We don't want to underestimate them. We don't want to overestimate them because they're very expensive to build. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak on this matter that hasn't already spoken?
I'll just confirm the point about the zoning is that the zoning RM2 allowed them to build the buildings that are currently there would not be allowed because of the 20 unit cap. So that is correct. We lowered the cap on RM2.
Okay. So that being the case, I'll close public hearing on item 5, which is the Megan's Way business. Trustee Doxey.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 6-23, zoning map amendment for Megan's Way, CMA-23-4.
I'll second that.
So I have a motion and a second. Discussion from the board. Any other thoughts? Had a little bit of discussion, neighbors and whatnot.
Mr. President, if I might, I think that whenever we have had the discussion over Tivoli Green, the first times the first presentations made by the Vanguard Group, I was not on the board at that time, but I did attend those presentations. And I've attended many presentations over the years in this and other communities where multifamily, big developments are coming into areas that have existing residential areas around them that oftentimes are not in favor of them, as the two gentlemen spoke. But there's a couple of very important things that I want to remind ourselves of tonight. Number one, at the Plan Commission, Robin Palm made a presentation at the end of the most recent Plan Commission meeting. I don't know if any of you in the room were privy to or listened to that meeting or were present at that meeting, but we have a very interesting landmark within walking distance of this development, and it's the train station in Sturtevant. And as Robin, as a planner, and Sam Schultz as a planner, are looking at the overall community, they've created a transportation ring. In other words, that train station is an amenity to the residents of Mount Pleasant that commute either to Chicago or from Chicago out to this area. And when they drew the ring, Robin, in your presentation, when you show the ring around the transportation corridor, that transportation circle, Tivoli Green is right in the middle of it. It's walkable distance to the train station. And many of the residents, I'm sure, in the Tivoli Green community are very happy to live that commuting close to the train station. The way I view this property, and the item before us tonight, is the zoning. When this project was first presented to us, we had an older zoning code that now has been changed. The uses of the buildings and the areas that they are being located in are the same areas that has been presented to the community, to the Plan Commission, and to the board since their inception 4 years ago. The problem is that they're going at it in phases, and so they keep coming before us, and it sounds like they're bringing on something new and bringing on something we haven't heard before, when Tivoli Green as an entire project has been well thought out, the uses have been thought out, and the developer, as he should, rightfully so, continues to analyze what his needs are in the community, what his current residents are telling him, what units are the best rental markets for him, and so therefore I can support this project moving forward, because tonight's action is a zoning action. When they first zoned this property, they had to zone it to RM2. That is what our code called for at the time. Since then, our code has changed. The fact that they, as business professionals, are making a change in their building model sounds to me like they've been smart. They have hundreds of other units in other communities that they manage, and I trust that they're coming to us with the building that they know is going to be the most successful for them. The area that they are rezoning was already zoned to RM1 or to RM2. It already allowed for the densities that they're bringing to us tonight. So what I see is, because of market conditions, because of their knowing their product, because of where they're located in our transportation circle, this zoning, in my mind, is all in line with the project that was presented to us 4 years ago. And we're just continuing to work through that process of zoning changes as the properties that they are currently developing are moving forward. So I can appreciate the fact that 90th Street is going to be taking more traffic. All of our roads are taking more traffic, but they're built for it. It's a collector street, it's 120 feet wide, it has multiple lanes, it's easy in and easy out. I know it's not always easy for the residents that have been here forever. My husband is a resident that's been here for multiple generations. It's hard for him to go through the changes in the community. But this development has been very successful. The residents living in it are working at our hospital, the beautiful hospital complex that was built on Highway 20 by Aurora. They're using the train station, they're working at Foxconn, they're working at an incinerator, and so we're creating a community for more of our residents to stay in the community and work in our businesses. So the action before us is a zoning change. We still have to see the site plan. That is going to be highly scrutinized, and those approvals will be forthcoming at a later time. So I am in favor of the zoning. I think it's in line with what their project has been planned for all along. And because we changed the zoning code, they now have to come back and change their zoning. But they're not changing it dramatically from what it was prior already and is existing now. So again, I'm in favor of it, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Their project has been an amazing success from the inception. Market rate apartments, they fill them as fast as they can build them. And they're just trying to manage their business going forward in an orderly growth pattern. Anything else from the board? So the motion is for the property on Megan's Way. Amendment 23-4. Roll call, please.
Washburn?
Aye.
Hewitt?
Aye.
Anastasio?
Aye.
Doxy?
Aye.
Bhatia?
Aye.
DeGroot?
Aye. Motion carries. So we got one last public item hearing, number 6, which is item F, parent 1, parent F. And we're opening the public hearing regarding item F, parent 1, parent F, a zoning text amendment related to industrial uses, which is Ordinance 7-2023. Back to Mr. Palm.
Thank you. I will just chime in and say that they're expanding to 10 trains a day out of that station, and WisDOT has also expressed that they want to expand service in that train station, so we are looking forward. Ordinance 7 speaking looking forward, we're looking forward to Ordinance 7-2023, a zoning text amendment for Chapter 90-320.90 industrial uses. Village staff received a letter from James Page, Senior Vice President and Executive Director of the Milwaukee 7, M7, which is basically the Milwaukee Economic Development Council, and he proposed that the village specify a specific use type for data centers. In that letter, he stated that the significant infrastructure investments made in Mount Pleasant permission the community well for these types of projects, especially those need robust water and electric service. So the village staff, we took that recommendation and subsequently referenced the June 22 issue of zoning practice published by the American Planning Association that discussed data centers. And we proposed an amendment to our zoning code to add a proposed land use to that. So the village staff had previously classified data centers under indoor warehousing, wholesaling, and freight movement. So this is just adding an additional clause that calls that out very specifically under that section and says data centers. And this is everything else is as is. We already have some data center usage within the village, and it was classified under that use as well. So this is a cleanup and specification only.
Thank you. So as before, I have nobody signed up for comment on this. Anybody wish to speak? Let me know. Nobody's waving their hands, so we can close public comment on that item, and we'll move to the motion.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve Ordinance 7-2023, a zoning text amendment for 90-320 industries uses.
I'll second that.
So I hear a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Not hearing anything. We'll call the roll call vote on that.
Washburn,
Aye.
Hewitt,
Aye.
Anastasio. Aye. Doxy. Aye. Gratia.
Aye.
DeGroot.
Aye, so that motion carries. So that takes us out of the element of many, many public hearings.
Thank you.
And so from here, we can move on to discussion and possible motion to purchase jointly with Racine County a conservation easement to protect certain property within the village known as Campbell Woods, and enter into a memorandum of understanding with Racine County related to said purchase. You taking this one?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President. So what you have before you today is consideration of a number of actions that would protect the area of the village known as Campbell Woods, the undeveloped area of Campbell Woods, in perpetuity. And I'll just kind of explain how this would work.
Oh, should I have a motion on this first?
Sure, yeah, you can do a motion first.
Yeah, let's get back to that. Let's have a motion for this.
And Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to jointly purchase with Racine County a conservation easement from the Root Pike Watershed Initiative Network Incorporated or a similar nonprofit environmental conservation organization that will protect environmental corridor within the village in perpetuity for an amount not to exceed $379,400.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second, thanks. So we're in order the way I want this to be now, so carry on.
Okay, so the Campbell Woods, the forested area, not the developed area, has been identified in a number of documents, including our Parks and Open Space Plan as protected environmental corridor. I'm no environmental expert, but what the environmentalists have said is this is extremely rare, old growth, never cut forest that exists within the village, and actually is some of the only old growth forest that's never been molested or cut in any way in the entire county. And so there's been a history, before I was serving as village attorney, but I'm aware of it regarding this parcel of land. But the bottom line is the village and the county, who's taking this up tonight, in fact, they're in session now, I believe, has put forward a plan for you to approve where a nonprofit conservation organization, likely to be Root Pike Win, but frankly, Root Pike Win and other nonprofit conservation organizations are working out those details, but we should have a final answer by the end of the week. That organization, and going forward, I'm just going to refer to it as Root Pike Win because I believe that's who it will be. They will purchase 2/3 of the forest. They will purchase 2/3 of the forest with funds from the village and the county, who would jointly share in that price. And the total price for that 2/3 of the forest is $700,450. So the county and the village would split that equally. In exchange for that, Root Pike Win will grant the county and the village a conservation easement which would protect that portion of the forest forever. So it would never be developed. It would, there would be some non-invasive improvements for very passive use for the public, such as wood chip type paths and a small parking area so the public can access it, because this would be, even though it would be owned by Root Pike Win, the conservation easement specifies that the public would have access for passive recreational use. So we're talking about hiking, we're talking about birding, things of that nature. The And you may be wondering, well, what about the remaining third of the forest? Well, the current owner of the entire forest has a certain price point for the whole area, and the county and the village just don't have the funds at this point to meet that price, and that price is basically right around $1 million. So what we have today, altogether, what we have today is about $700,000. So what we have done is, and the owners is it's like an LLC called the Senior Campus of Campbell Woods, and what they've agreed to do is grant Root Pike Wynn a 10-year lease for basically a nominal amount that will lock up that final third for 10 years. And within that 10-year period, Root Pike Wynn will have an exclusive offer to purchase that final piece. And during that 10 years' time, the conservation easement that applies to the 2/3 of the forest will apply by the terms of the lease to the 1/3. So during that 10 years, it's all protected. 2/3 would be protected forever. 1/3 we know will be protected in 10 years, and Root Pike Wynn then will attempt for the next decade to raise funds primarily through grants, and I'm told that they believe their chances of success will be high because the grants out there for organizations like Root Pike Wynn are primarily given on a matching basis, and once the village and county funds this, they can use that funding as a match to apply for further grants. So Root Pike Wynn's opinion of whether or not they will be able to purchase the remaining third within that 10 years, they're extremely confident they will do so. The whole idea here is to bring this to this board to vote on whether or not you want to invest these funds to protect this forest, 2/3 of it forever, 1/3 very likely forever, but a minimum of 10 years. Now, just because you vote yes does not mean 100% this is a done deal, okay? It shows that from our perspective it's done, and you would commit the funds, and in a minute the village administrator will talk about where those funds will come from. But before we get to that point, I want everyone to understand the process here, and the process would be, if you approve, we agree to donate our share, which is about $370,000 to this effort, only contingent upon the fact that that the county approves it tonight, Root Pike Wynn, their board approves it, and I'm told that should happen before the end of the week, and that everything is signed, sealed, and delivered from the Senior Campus LLC that owns the property, which they are, I'm told, very enthusiastic about this happening. We do have a hard deadline of March 7th to try to get this done because the property on March 7th is listed for sheriff's sale. And I can report that we have gotten at the village calls from brokers about the fact that this property is listed on the sheriff's sale list for March 7th. And so if this falls through, likely what will occur is the sheriff's sale will happen, and a developer, someone may purchase it and try to bring something forward which would potentially destroy the forest. So where we are tonight is you would basically make a motion. Well, the motion is made. If you approve it, what would happen is we would sign off on the conservation easement with Root Pike Wynn, and we would sign an MOU with Racine County that basically agrees we're splitting the cost, we're sharing the responsibilities in the, as it pertains to the conservation easement. And what I mean by that is if Root Pike Wynn ever wants to do something other than just simply remove invasive species, if they wanted to transfer it to another nonprofit, the county and the village in our MOU are agreeing that the only way that can happen is if both boards would agree. Okay? And why did we do it like that? Because, we believe, my belief is it's the intent of this board to just preserve this in its natural state, and it shouldn't be easy to change that. So you would need both the county board and the village board and Root Pike Wind to all agree to do something differently than what we're talking about now. So I'll turn, unless anyone has questions for me, Maureen will speak to, where do we get the money for this? Because we certainly didn't budget for it. It is happening probably on a faster timeline than we're used to for government because of this hard deadline we have where the opportunity will be gone. So this was not part of the budget, and if Maureen wants to speak to that part of it.
One of the chief responsibilities that you have as a village board is to protect the public interest. And how you do that is by adopting policies that protect the public interest. One of them that we have is our fund balance policy, which requires that we set aside in a savings account, like we all do, and personally, I hope, set aside funds so that if there is something that goes wrong or there is an opportunity that goes right, like we have tonight, we're required to put it set aside 20%. For the Village of Mount Pleasant, that is in the neighborhood of $4.8 million. I can report that we are going through our audit for this year. We anticipate, and that's not quite done yet, we're going through, our finance department is working hard to accomplish that. I can tell you that we're at about double the 20%. We're somewhere in the $9 million range for our fund balance. So it makes an opportunity like this to present itself because we've spent appropriately. So what we're asking tonight, and it's once you take the action on preserving Campbell Woods, the next resolution will set aside $379,400 for this. We're assuming there might be some incidental costs that we haven't thought about, so that's why we're asking for that dollar amount. The documents before you have roughly $750,450 that will be put towards this effort by both the county and the village. So that's the good news tonight. We're required to have about 20%, and we currently have about double that. So we certainly can afford to do the work necessary to preserve this very important part of Mount Pleasant. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. When we reached out to Dave Giordano, he had this property, Campbell Woods, as the screensaver on his computer, which just said it all to me. Someone who was entirely interested in preserving land in Racine County had this very property as his screensaver. Dave's not here tonight. He's at Racine County making sure that this gets done there. So I think that's all I have to say. If there's any questions, happy to take them.
Any questions for either Chris or Maureen, or we'll start entertaining comments from the board. Let's start with Denise.
Yes, one of the reasons that I got interested in joining the board before I was on the board is the development of the Pike River pathway, which was not too far from my house, and I started using it, early on, and just loved seeing how it was growing, and that it's such a wonderful amenity for Mount Pleasant. And it made me proud of Mount Pleasant, that it was, spending the time and the effort and the money to, save this, environmental corridor and to improve it. And it's improved vastly. And I know that there's other parts of the county, of the village, that we're trying to do that. And so, to me, this is just another piece of that, that focus on preserving the environment, not just for our own personal use, but into the future. That I just love the idea, and I would definitely support it wholeheartedly.
Go ahead, Ron.
Since I've been on the board for the last 5 years, I learned more about this property, and I've heard from the residents, especially around the Campbell Woods, how not only important but how prime piece of conservation land is this. This is, it's not only in Mount Pleasant but in our whole regional community. The village board and we have and our partners like with the county have been looking at that, and everyone has been concerned because you don't want to lose that kind of prime conservation land which can impact the quality of life for everyone. So I'm very pleased that our negotiating team, the leadership under our administrator, under the leadership of our attorney and the county board and the boards of the other partners like Root Pike River, they have come up with a very creative way to come up with a solution which is going to preserve this prime piece of conservation land forever. Because as we heard, and we always know that anything can be done given the time and the money. And money has always been an issue. So I'm so pleased that after many years of effort, at least 5 to 7 years of effort, that this creative, the solution is going to be, I would say, go down in the history of this village and the region and the county, how you can work together for the good of the community to preserve the land, and if you work together, you can find creative ways. And I'm so pleased. Thank you.
John?
Campbell Woods is a special place, not just for the people who live there, but the surrounding property and everything too. It is very, very, very important to the whole county, to the state of Wisconsin even too, to preserve this. And we have a duty to look after this and continue to move forward and protect it forever.
I would share that opinion. I don't know, Mr. Doxey, if you, I'm sorry, I'm going out of line. I just looked over, but it looked up. I'm sorry.
Your turn, jump in.
All right. What I really think is interesting about this is the conservation easement itself. I have worked in other projects and in other communities where conservation easements are in place. And in many cases, they are managed by only a homeowner association of the residents. This is a much different situation. This is a really solid agreement. It's an easement with an organization that has, forgive the pun, has roots in Root Pike Wynn, but it has depth. It's not just some homeowners that hope they go out and pick the thistle. This is an organization that is specific and dedicated to the conservation and cleanup of areas that have been neglected, as this one has. And the restrictions within the easement itself are very tight. They can clean it up. They can get rid of invasive species. They can trim the trees, and they can create pathways through it, but they cannot sell it off. They cannot divide it, and they cannot wantonly clear cut it or and so forth. So the conservation easement with a group as strong as Root Pike Wynn, knowing that Mike Luba is the board president. Mike Luba was a former Wisconsin DNR representative, and he was our local regional chief. So you have people on this Root Pike Wynn board who have dedicated not only their careers through Root Pike Wynn, but prior careers through the DNR. They're experts in their field. So I'm very confident that we're making a great decision here. We are very lucky that we have a budget that allows us to do it. And that is, I think, a very big statement for our residents to recognize. So again, as Denise and Ram and John have alluded to, I'm very much in support of it and look forward to it moving forward.
Yeah, I'd just like to say one thing about this. In my life, I've lived in a lot of places. And I grew up in a small town in central Minnesota. Didn't have anything like this. Farming community, there's little parks, but that was it. When I was in the military and I was out in Washington State, I was in a town called Anacortes. And they had the actual mayor at the time had actually bought a bunch of property that was clear cut and made it into a large park. And basically what this is, it's much larger than what this is gonna be. But the whole community and people from all over went out to this park all the time. It was big enough where it had a lake that we could swim in. It was incredible. So just grabbing onto something like this and holding it and keeping it as it was for people to go and walk through, I think is just great. I loved that park in Anacortes, and I was, I'll look forward to going out to this because there's nothing else like this in the area.
Even though we're up against a hard deadline in a matter of days, this is a deal that's been getting put together, I want to say, since last May, when the senior campus reached out to us and explained to us that they're getting pressure from their creditors. COVID, pretty much zapped the future possibility of their project being able to go forward. They're running out of time. They're running out of ideas, and they're looking to us for help. And we said, look, don't know if we can, but let's give it our best shot. And so between the Campbell Woods people, between Executive Delgrave and myself, who walked the land and decided that, yeah, this is special. This is worth saving. We got to bring this back to our boards and get them involved. Getting the neighborhoods input on what they wanted to see out of that and how they could be involved. Kudos to our Sam Schultz, who had a lot to do with getting the underpinning of this put together. Much credit goes to our own Chris Smith, who, along with the folks from Root Pike Wind and other entities, masterminded what could be possible. Because it comes down to the money. It's not an endless supply of money. We got to work with what we have, what we can afford, and we got to keep the trees in mind. So I've always been an advocate of protecting Campbell Woods. And as we've heard, it's an extremely important environmental corridor that certainly has all of our attention. And it's been identified for protection in many various plans over the years. And as plans have changed, as the comp plan has changed, as zoning and ordinances have all changed, the one thing that stayed solid, as Nancy was alluding to, was the desire to protect this. And for many years, I was saddened to hear when a group of investors that own the property came to the village with a plan to tear down the forest and build a senior living facility. I voted against that plan, and I was outvoted. As I remember, Trustee Hewitt was on the board at that time as well, and he voted with me to stop that development. And we got outvoted. One of the trustees at the time, John Hanson, who was on the Plan Commission with Mr. Hewitt, voted at the Plan Commission to kill the project, and then turned around at the board level a couple of weeks later and flip-flopped and voted to support the project. That's how we, and without comment. We have no idea why he changed his mind. But that started a lot of animosity between the neighbors who, as Phase 1 neighbors, bought in under the promise that Phase 2 was going to be a lot like Phase 1, only better, and maybe even a gated community. It was going to be that exclusive. It's where the best of the best houses were going to be built. So I'm very happy tonight to be able to say that, you know, we're here to correct the village's prior mistake. So I believe it was a mistake to ever vote to allow that zoning change.
Agreed.
To put that in. And we have an opportunity today to right that wrong. And in doing so, we'll be able to preserve the forest forever for future generations. However, as happy as I am to protect the forest, I really have to hold my nose when I make my vote, because despite the idea of, you know, despite the fact that we're saving the forest, I despise the idea of bailing out a group of investors that wanted to destroy the forest. And I say bail out because the spokesperson for the group, who's sitting here in chambers, you know, had come to tell us that they're out of options and this is going to a sheriff's sale unless we can ride in and come to the rescue. In addition to that, them being foreclosed on, they also haven't paid their property taxes in 3 years. And I guess there's some $70,000 of property taxes in arrear. So I hate the idea of local government, i.e. the Village of Mount Pleasant residents, Racine County residents. I hate the idea of them bailing out the group who wanted to destroy the forest, made bad business decisions, bankrupted themselves, and didn't pay taxes. And what's even more appalling is the name on a list that was provided to me by that group's spokesperson. I have a list of the members of the LLC. You're not going to believe whose name is on this list. It is none other than Kelly Gallagher.
Oh.
That Kelly Gallagher. Kelly Gallagher, the frequent village critic and my opponent for village president. It's amazing to me that the person who's constantly claiming that the village is broke and quote unquote is drowning in debt now has her hand out for village money.
Wow.
It's interesting that Mrs. Gallagher, who seems to have an opinion on any village decision to spend money at any time, never shy for an opinion, has been silent on this issue. Yeah, I wonder why.
Shocking.
I guess her objection to the village spending money doesn't apply when she's the one getting the money. So whether a person who's part of a group that hasn't paid property taxes in years is qualified to be village president, I guess is up to the voters. So as I stated, even though I don't like bailing these people out, protecting the forest really is the highest priority. So I'll continue to support this. It's good for the forest, obviously, but it's also good for the neighbors that have gone through hell for the last number of years, not knowing when that other shoe is going to drop. And it gives them certainty, and it gives them closure. And it's good for the nonprofits that are going to be the stewards of this going forward. You know, it's a win-win-win-win-win. the most ironic thing about all of this is that as we sit here as the board, riding in, on our white horse, with with all the shining armor, and we are saving this forest and bailing out the organization. The same woman that comes before this board month after month and has insulted me, has insulted most of these board members, has insulted our staff, and I'm looking at Clerk Colhagen, and I'm looking at Maureen, Administrator Murphy, and I'm looking down the row at some of our professionals. I'm looking at Chris Smith, our specialists, our attorneys, our relocation experts, our project managers. All these people have been called out by this woman as being incompetent, as being criminals, and even worse. As I consider, my vote, it dawns on me that she needs this vote. It's kind of a Hitchcock ending for me, because by voting to save this, I'm greasing her palm. I'm putting money in her hand. And I just find it kind of nauseating for all the crap that we've had to go through from her, that she's the one that benefits from this.
I am, obviously, we didn't know this LLC and the names of the people, so, Mr. President, hearing from you the name of Ms. Gallagher, I don't know how to react. Should I be shocked, surprised, or should I say, not surprised? You mentioned how she has called everyone's name. I did not know this person, never met her before I got elected. And since then, maybe after you, I have been her number 2 target on the village board. Maybe number 3, but very close. I've been called, oh, you're uneducated, you're an idiot, on my face.
I
Anyway.
called you a racist, too.
And racist among all the people. Look at me, I'm racist. Anyway, but that's not about her. What I'm going to say is, what all these years that I have seen, she and her handpicked now few people who follow her, and maybe now her handpicked candidates to run against her, they have never come up with a solution. I have invited her and her supporters many times. Please, if you have any idea, we will adopt it. Tell us about it. What do you want to do?
Okay, we got to get back on topic.
No. I just have to go back to saying it. I'm not surprised, because I always felt that her actions do not reflect her group, Better Mount Pleasant, and the group doesn't justify her action. That group should be called Bring Down Mount Pleasant, not Better Mount Pleasant.
Mr. President, I think it's time to call the question on this. I look at this, I remember when Joe Campbell brought this forward, certain members of my family were abutting property owners, and he on public record stated there was no reason to invite us to his little meeting. From that day forward, I saw the actions happen, and at this point, I am thrilled for the residents of Campbell's Woods. I think they will be able to live in peace and harmony with their environment now. I'm thrilled for the benefit, for the village of Mount Pleasant to be able to take this property and protect it. And I say we call the question and let's vote.
Second.
I'm good with that.
You're waiting
Motion
there?
in a second.
No, it doesn't have to be motioned.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it's a good discussion. Incredible opportunity. A lot of hair on the project, as most people would think. No, I'm not taking comment on this. Call roll.
Washburn,
Aye.
Hewitt,
Aye.
Anastasio,
Aye.
Doxy,
Aye.
Bhatia,
A big aye.
DeGroot.
You betcha. Aye.
Just before we move on to the next item, I'm going to repeat what I said earlier. You have now approved this. The county needs to approve it, and they're meeting now. Root Pike Win needs to approve it. So at least one piece is done. And we'll know more. I'll keep you updated as the week progresses.
So we got a couple more things to get to. We've got discussion, possible motion to approve the budget resolution. And that's the underpinning for this purchase as well as a number of other things.
Yep, I can speak to that. So we do have Budget Resolution 01-2023. This is the very first budget resolution of the year. There were 3 items that we did speak tonight about at the COW meeting. The first one is the addition of funds related to the 2023 public transit agreement that we have with Racine. Unfortunately, we did get an agreement in place following the budget workshops, which is the reason that we do need the increase of $161,500. The next item that we talked about was a South Shore Fire Department Ford pickup that was sold at auction for $15,350. And the fire department would like to use those funds to pay for some fleet maintenance that came up that was kind of unexpected. The final item was just what we talked about just now as far as the easement for Campbell Woods, and that was $379,400. Maureen covered it well as far as our fund balance goes. We're in very good shape. Our preliminary numbers are showing right now that our income did exceed our expenses, and I'm very comfortable in assuming that that will be the case. I just don't have a solid number on that at this time.
Okay, let's get a motion on this.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve Budget Resolution 01-2023 as presented.
Second.
So I hear a motion and a second. Discussion from the board regarding this. I think it was pretty well covered in Kyle just before.
I have nothing.
Very well. Budget resolution 01-2023. Roll call, please.
Washburn,
Aye.
Hewitt,
Aye.
Anastasio,
Aye.
Doxy,
Aye.
Bhatia,
Aye.
DeGroot.
Aye, that motion carries. Let's move on to some public works items. We've got discussion, possible motion to approve a soil removal and sales agreement between the Village of Mount Pleasant and Republic Services of Wisconsin, Kestrel Hawk.
Yes, Mr. President, we've got some dirt to move. I'd like to make a motion to approve a soil removal and sale agreement between the Village of Mount Pleasant and Republic Services of Wisconsin.
Second.
So your motion and a second. Is this Claude? Tony?
Thank you, Mr. President. So as most of you know, the Kestrel Hawk landfill is closed, and one of the requirements to close that facility is to cap the entire landfill with suitable soils. So we were approached by Republic Services, basically looking for dirt, and we have quite a few very large stockpiles throughout the village that came from our excavation of the Pike River corridor. So a lot of suitable soils for this purpose, which really don't serve us any purpose. They're just large piles. So this is really a win-win for both parties. We can make a little money off it at the same time. And we went back and forth, the village attorney and myself, with the representatives from Republic Services, and came up with this agreement to move this forward.
And Tony, if you wanted to elaborate a little bit more on the amount of material, I think when we were at committee, we talked about the fact that they were talking about up to several 100,000 yards, or
About 225.
200 to 225,000 yards at $1 a yard. That's significant. For commingled material, should make us very happy.
Sounds like a good deal all around.
It's a very good deal all the way around.
Any other thoughts? Okay, so on the motion of moving dirt, we'll just take a voice vote on that. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that motion carries. So we've got the discussion motion to approve Resolution 2-2023 for 2022 public street acceptances.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2-2023 for 2022 public street acceptances as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Byer.
Thank you again, Mr. President. This is a resolution we typically pass annually, and it's done to accept the developer-funded roads that were completed according to village spec in the previous year. So for 2022, the roads we have that are completed are Megan's Way, Portico Drive, and Veranda Lane, and those are those sections of roads related to the Tivoli Green development up the road.
Pretty straightforward.
Looks like it to me. Okay, so in the matter of Resolution 2-2023, roll call, please.
Washburn,
Aye.
Hewitt,
Aye.
Anastasio,
Aye.
Doxy,
Aye.
Boccia,
Aye.
Groot.
He says aye. Motion carries. Discussion possible motion to approve Ordinance 9-2023, which is an ordinance amending Section 70-1 of the Village Code of Ordinances related to the excavation in streets.
Oh, Mr.
How about a motion?
Mr. Motion?
Mr. Motion.
Sorry. Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve Ordinance 9-2023, amending Section 70-1 of the Village Code of Ordinances related to the excavation in streets.
Second.
Motion and a second. Back to Mr. Byer.
Yeah, so this is primarily a cleanup item and an ordinance we put forth to better match zoning's ordinance for similar installations. This is primarily related to things that are put in village right away. I think it provides some protections, some more indemnification to the village as far as landscaping, sprinkler systems, things people illegally put in the right of way that if we hit during a utility project or road project, it makes it very clear that it's not our responsibility to repair those, whereas before there was a little more ambiguity to it. So that's all this is.
I think definitely that terrace area, you know, there's no line in your yard that's a dotted line like on your plat that shows this is the end of your lot line.
Right.
And I see sprinkler systems get trashed all the time and, oh, it's our fault, and no, it's not. So I appreciate Tony making the effort to clean this up so that it is clear, so that when we have a project going on or we have disturbances, it's clear as to what everyone's responsibilities are. It never hurts to be, clarifications are always very good.
So I'm on the Public Works Committee, and we've discussed before how people have their landscaping out too far, and visual, when you're coming to a busy intersection, you can't see anything because there's bushes or shrubs in the way. And that, amongst also putting sprinklers in too close, I think this is a really good idea, and we need to do this.
Yeah, Robin, what's the technical term for that? Is that the vision corner or the,
Vision triangle is basically
triangle?
any corners, then there's the sort of terrace or landscape area, but anything within that sort of, areas, the right of way.
Right.
And, people can put stuff in there. It's just at your own risk, just like any sort of easement or anything like that. If you want to put a flower or whatever and it gets run over, well, that's your fault.
or dug up?
Yeah.
All right. So in the matter of Ordinance 9-2023, roll call, please.
Washburn,
Aye.
Hewitt,
Aye.
Anastasio,
Aye.
Doxy,
Aye.
Boccia,
Aye.
Groot.
Aye, motion carries. No reports. One last motion.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. President?
I'll second that.
I hear a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.